We caption all these videos, and every time I say, hey, wouldn't this be great for foreign language students, for closed caption? Maybe captions make a difference. Does it make a difference? Closed captioning, of course, you're familiar if you've ever watched any shows, closed caption for the hearing impaired, and we are legally obligated to do that, so that's good, right? And of course, if you've ever watched any foreign languages, closed captions are kind of important, right? Wouldn't really know what the movie's about without them. But then there's this question, what about for native speakers? Nobody turns on the closed captioning for native speakers. That would be silly, right? And in fact, no less an authority than this gentleman, Robert Mayer, the guru of multimedia learning, has said that anytime you have redundant information, for example, if I put a PowerPoint on the display that says exactly what I'm saying, especially multiple bullet points, that can be distracting for students. They're reading point 4 when you're talking about point 1, and they don't learn it. What's on the screen has got to go together with what you're saying and supplement it and reinforce it rather than being redundant with it. So he's on record as saying for redundant information, closed captioning wouldn't work, which implies for native speakers, closed captioning is probably not good. But we're psychologists. There's probably a reason. And we decided to test this because we have a nice pool of subjects. And so in this one, we had them watch one of our 5-minute video lectures, either, here's our I.O. lecture, with or without captions, to see what happens. Trust me, this is going somewhere. Here's the way the lecture.
A little switch for you.
And I apologize for this. The captions are generated automatically, so I had to take a picture of this.
First question, either true or false.
By the way, here's an example of not
hired a 22-year-old
bullet points.
man or woman for a job because he or she is too young is illegal. Is it against the rules? Can I say that I'm not going to hire someone because they're 22 years old?
Yeah, that's true. True or false? Hire somebody because they're 22?
True or false? False. Actually true. I can discriminate
Really?
against any one of you.
Did not know that.
If you're 20. The Age Discrimination and Employment Act is
By the way, hey, you can fire those 22 years. You can also take, then they also take a multiple choice quiz, very similar to the one that they take. True or false, promoting younger workers than an older worker performs better, is that legal or not? And they take a quiz based on that stuff. So what do you think? English learning students, we had 130 total Psych 120 students, the way they volunteer for research, you can get this. They actually used 80 students because 50% who took the test didn't score above chance on the quiz. That's just because students, when they take these online quizzes, they get credit for taking it whether or not they do it really well or not. And so what happens is some of them do it, some of them don't. So we keep the ones that did it. But of that, want to take a guess? First off, it's out of 15. How do you think they did?
This is performance, right? On the
Performance
y-axis?
quiz, yeah, quiz answers out of 15.
Oh,
Average correct.
that's no caption.
That's no captions. They get 10 correct. So go on record, the caption may be better. It could make it worse. Mayer's right, by the way. It would definitely hurt their learning because they're watching the captions, they're not paying attention to what's going on. Could be this particular.
Make it better, but that was my.
You are right. Went to 11 on average. And it's now 1 point. Who cares? Well, first of all, psychologists care because it's significant according to a test. Right? That's one thing. But the second thing is that I find it interesting because it's a 67% on average versus 72, otherwise known as a C versus a D. Hey, wait, yeah, it should be. But that's, right, if you get a D in a course, it doesn't count. And especially in psychology, a D means you have to retake the course. So what this says is if you're an English-speaking student and you turn on the captions, you could pass the course effectively or not pass the course based on whether or not you turn on the caption. And there ain't too many English-speaking students who think, oh yeah, let me turn on the captions for hearing impaired. It does make a difference. We think, by the way, this may have something to do with signal-to-noise ratio. We also know the students that sit closer up front do better, in part maybe because they hear it better. You get a better signal. You don't have to spend as much time figuring out what the person's saying, and you can spend more time thinking about the content of the words. But for whatever reason, it seems like captions actually help.
George, what were those distributions look like? Were they normal distributions?
Yes, very normal. Well, once you cut off the people who aren't doing anything, who are really random. Although, actually, one of the things that happens with the distribution is you see the effect of captions getting stronger and stronger the better people did across all things. Okay. So in other words, the better you did, the more important captions were, which is the other thing we wondered, well, would it be useful for people who are okay, or is it useful for people doing well? No, actually, if you want to get at the very best, turn on those captions. in fairness, what I think could be going on here is still related to what Mayor is saying. If you've got a bulleted list of everything that he was saying, having those captions kind of forces you to focus in on what he's saying now versus what's on the list. And when you don't have the captions, students could easily be reading the wrong thing. So Mayor could ultimately be right for this, but that's useful to know that maybe the captions help keep you on task, help keep you on track. So I think you don't need them again. Of course, there's one other very logical question that shows up next. What about for people who don't speak the language? And this is in fact why we did the study in the first place. Is it useful to have the language captioned in the first place for those for whom English is their second language? So we got 50 total readers of hopefully Mandarin Chinese. Well, Mandarin Chinese. It's not the traditional, it's the Han. And 30 students used, again, 20 students to above chance. So you might ask, how did we recruit students who could read Mandarin Chinese? Take a guess. There you go.
Oh.
This was the study announcement in the study place. Here, you can do this study. Was not as effective a manipulation as we thought. We still had 44 students sign up for it who were non-Chinese speaking.
How many?
44 students signed up this semester when we ran it again. Oh, that sounds interesting. It's different. Maybe I'll learn how to read Chinese. So they checked into it. And actually, they replicated our results very nicely with the English, because it's the same study, whether or not you go in there or not. So I thought that was funny that the 40 students who apparently are happy to sign up for that, which actually has the description of the study too, replicated exactly. The effective captions was significant, all that kind of stuff. Here's what it looks like, by the way. Same deal, same captions, just in what I'm told is the non-traditional Chinese. So there could be issues with reading there. Like, it's possible not all Chinese students would be able to read this. Somebody brought that up, and I trust my students. So I bring that up. So what do you think? English, again, just to review, we went from 10 to 11. How do you think they did with the Chinese captions?
Yeah, it's got to be a much bigger difference.
Yeah,
No?
well, English students. These are English reading students. So this is not just our 44, but this is all the English students. We played the Chinese captions for them. This is kind of nice because it shows that the captions don't distract students. It doesn't necessarily having them there, but it doesn't help them either. They're not going to get a benefit
Okay,
from
those
Chinese
are for
captions.
English students.
How about Chinese students? What do you think?
That's what I meant when I said it's.
Oh, okay, much better.
It's not, oh, yeah.
That's my first whoa. That's with no captions.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute, that's a 7. That's barely passing. And with English captions, they do get better. In fact, the effect size is roughly the same. So it helps. So what do you think with the Chinese
Yeah,
captions?
it's going to be way up there.
I hope so too. But
Oh, really?
So the Chinese student and some of the people who read, well, maybe they couldn't all read that particular kind of Chinese. Although again, why are you signing up for it if you can't read it? And they said they were fluent, and they said they could read the characters. So I don't think that was it. And by the way, this is helping. It's helping a little
So
bit.
is the difference between the no caption and the Chinese caption still significant?
From here to here?
Yeah.
No, not yet. Actually, this isn't significant either because of smaller numbers. The effect size is the same, and that's why
Okay.
I'm trying to run it again this semester to get more.
But regardless, they're not even mastering, right? At
This,
8?
to me, is the big thing. Like, whoa, I had no idea this was going on. You're telling me a student for whom English is not their native language, if they watch the same video that everybody else did and then take a quiz, they're going to struggle with that quiz by default
Right.
by a significant amount. That, to me, was kind of the big news. Now, the first thing is, well, apparently it doesn't matter. We don't have to caption all the videos in Chinese necessarily. We could just tell them to watch the English ones, and it will boost their grade. And some students, again, remember the higher performing students do even better. So you can push it up a lot. And the joke not joke, but the sort of summary I was trying to say before is that a Chinese student with captions could outperform at sometimes an English student without them. So that's actually useful. Although that's certainly not for all students and not for all students to struggle. But for me, the big news was, wait a minute, you're telling me some students are really going to struggle in this class simply by virtue of their mastery of the language. And so when we talk about, can you get an A or a B in a class, part of it can be just a language deficit before you, the language difficulty.
The quizzes are still in English though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we could offer the quizzes in Chinese and say, but that's not going to happen. We can do it. But I don't know if that would be I guess we could offer translating services.
Well, I would also wonder about the quality of the translation, if, I know it's.
We had at least 2 people read it and say that that was
That
accurate
it-
for how it
it wasn't
was,
accurate,
yeah.
okay.
By the way, Google does this automatic translation, which is nothing short of silly, I mean, kind of funny in many spots, it's not right if you know how it goes, but we had somebody actually translate this specifically, because that was the other thing we were wondering, do we need to pay extra money to make sure it's translated right, and how much of a benefit are they gonna get? And if it's a big benefit, then I go to somebody and say, hey, look, international students.
Right.
Were they allowed to rewind it and listen to it?
Yes,
otherwise?
absolutely.
They were? Because that's supposed to be an advantage, you know, they would.
It's supposed to be,
But there could be, I think, you know, what Chuck is mentioning with the test is still in English, right? So
it is a code switching, is what people call it, right? I mean, you have to go from learning the, so you know that's the Chinese character for it, but you have to know how it goes. I know from anecdotal reports in France, when I see something captioned in English, it makes it easier to understand, but it also seems to help when it's captioned in French. So that seems to be useful.
And what part of the semester was this for them? Like, was it early in the year, or was
Well, this is done as part of their experiments, so it runs throughout the whole year.
it? Okay.
And they don't actually see this video until the end. So it wasn't that they'd seen the video before, if that's what you're...
No, I'm more thinking, have they been in the country for a while, and have they adapted to the
Oh,
language
yeah.
any better? You know, is this something that's a
Yeah.
permanent distinction, or is it just early in the fall?
Yeah, you're going to, we have data on that, you know, whether first-year students, as it goes, yeah, does it get better over time? That's true. Yeah, for sure. I'll bet that makes a difference. I'm trying to think if I don't think we have that data. We have their fluency, and there's, so, I mean, clearly what this means is different types of students, as somebody alluded to before, they're different, right? They're not going to be the same, and they're going to have different sets. And so we did have fluency ratings with quiz scores, so this would actually kind of answer that question. If students rate how fluent they are in English, the worse they are in English, the worse they did in the quiz scores, which hopefully is not too much of a surprise, but it's a little bit scary, right? Because it means that if you're coming in with low fluency, we probably need to do something pretty quick. Otherwise, the sort of quiz scores start to pile up.
Now I'm just still wondering what.
And I don't know, and the other thing, I'm just
Intervention
opening this up
phase,
too, do
right?
you think is this true? Do you notice in certain classes, is it the case that non-native speakers seem to struggle more with quizzes in the class? I mean, to me, this was kind of a surprise, because I was not, I just did not, I don't think of that necessarily. But does it seem to be true? It's worth checking.
I think most of what you're evaluating there is a quiz immediately following.
Immediately following, right.
And a lot of the Chinese students will review that again and again.
Yes.
And then eventually.
And work on it hard and kind of get your way up. So, yeah, again, this is a D versus an F for Chinese. So one of the issues that comes up is, you know, this is immediate test. Clearly, they just have to work extra hard to do that.